Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Module 2, Cognitive Neuroscience. All right, so let's take a look at our learning target. In Module 2, we'll be learning about the neuroscience research behind and the importance of three things. First one is classroom environment. We're going to be looking at several different things. You'll be asked to consider your own habits related to how you set up classroom environment. The second thing is we're going to be learning about is student learning communities. That's going to be a theme throughout this entire course, helping students establish SLCs. We talk a lot about professional learning communities, PLCs. We're pretty familiar with that after, a decade or two of working on that. But we're really trying to make sure that we understand the importance of SLCs, student learning communities. And then finally, the third thing is opportunities to differentiate. How we differentiate. And all of these are designed to help us, how do we make sure the class is safe, emotionally safe, physically safe for the students so they can be ready to learn. Okay, so we introduced the rubric. You know that there's the whole four habits, but we're focusing in on the bottom section of this. Remember we talked about this being the base. If we don't take care of the base, why are we even trying to move up to Bloom's taxonomy, conceptual understanding? That's what Common Core, next gen science, everything. Of course we want kids to be higher order thinking. Of course we want them to be reasoning at high levels and conceptual understanding. But if we don't take care of what we're talking about today, ready to learn, we'll never get up to that because this is the base. And again, we talked about this being part of Maslow's section on the rubric of taking care of those basic needs. And I think that's what we'll be seeing as we move forward. All right, so you're going to see the term emotional regulation here. And, when you read the rubric, you'll learn more about this as we go, but we're going to be focusing on that third column of that ready to learn row. And it's all about emotional regulation. Okay, ready to learn. It's about the overall impact, the overall title is like environment and differentiation. We're going to be learning about the neuroscience behind it. We're going to be connecting it to the four habits rubric. And then throughout this module, you're going to be asked to be making connections to your own instructional habits. Let the work begin. Let's start the reflection. As you understand what's in that third column of the rubric, I want you to be thinking about connections that you're making to your own practices. Emotional regulation. this this cracked me up when I was looking for something to like represent what we're talking about here. Down on the bottom right hand side, we've got a little brain here with all kinds of labels with the amygdala. And the amygdala's job is to make sure that we are always safe. And when the amygdala senses danger, it hits the panic button and it releases, you'll read all about this, but lots of cortisol and adrenaline. And what happens is we can't just ride that all the time, And so kids that are in poverty and trauma, you learned a lot about this probably in trauma-informed practices. They have issues of emotional regulation. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to help them manage their emotions, manage their amygdala as we help them in class. So what we're trying to do is make that, we're always going to have that panic button. But what we want to do is help them manage their amygdala in lots of different ways. We're going to hit a few of these in our class, but we don't want this giant panic button all the time with the kids. Now there are several things that can cause it at home, coming to school, at school. Kids can be nervous about a class or really anything. This module is about the research behind all this and what we can do about it. Now, the little subtitle here, stressed brains do not learn very well. This is going to be on the bottom of many slides coming up. I just want to get that point across. And of course, this is a scene from Jurassic Park. Now, my family and I spent a lot of time over in Hawaii. And, we actually went and visited Jurassic Park. So this is the Baker family. My wife, Heather, and my daughters, Brielle and Braylon. And we've experienced this terror of Jurassic Park. We know, like at this moment, our amygdalas were very, very overactivated, I can assure you. And here's what happens when our amygdala is overactivated. Um, our goal, what we're trying to have happen in class is we're trying to send information through our hippocampus and into short-term memory. But if the amygdala is too overactivated, if kids are too nervous about things, if they're not relaxed, and they go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. And um, what happens is the amygdala will hijack the hippocampus. It will keep us from learning because the goal of the amygdala is not to help us learn. It's just to keep us alive. And so it's really at a survival level. And so what we have to do is make sure that the amygdala can calm down and stay calm. Now, when the amygdala is overactivated, like in trauma communities and students with poverty and sustained trauma, what can happen is a condition called learned helplessness. And so we don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but you'll read about this in the Lit Review. What happens when you have constant trauma in your life is we can move into this realm of learned helplessness. It's this idea that I can't do it. It's the total opposite of growth mindset, that they can't do it. And the learned helplessness makes us feel like we're a failure. And learned helplessness, this happens because kids think that they don't have any control, and maybe they don't. But so I want you to key into that word control because that is going to be something that we're going to want to like rely on to help students. And remember, stressed brains do not learn very well. So this issue of learned helplessness, students are stressed. Sometimes they can feel alone. They have no control. We are going to want to try to avoid that. Maybe the kids come to us with mild conditions like this, that they could be stressed about homework or school, how school's being delivered, whether it's in class or online, all of those kinds of things. So, but we need to try to help them through that so that they don't get into a position of learned helplessness. They don't have to be there because if they're in that condition, their brain is just not going to learn very well. The hippocampus is too busy trying to keep them alive that it won't let information through the hippocampus so that we can learn. And you're going to learn some things just about differentiation here. Not all kids come to us on an even playing field. What's the matter? It's the same distance. There are on the right hand side there, we have some kids that just have a lot of obstacles and that we can't see and we need to be thinking about and be aware of. Some of them are pretty clear. They got a couple hurdles to get over, but some people have a lot more hazards to navigate. So we will talk about what's happening with the brain there and how we can help the brain relax by differentiation in the classroom. Because remember, stressed brains do not learn very well. Now, I mentioned that we as teachers, it's really easy to get into classroom management of, hats and gum and food and drinks and lining up in in the hall or outside, how you come in, bell work, managing the classroom. We have to do that. You got to set up a classroom. You got to manage the classroom. So we will have those things in place. But this module is about moving beyond that to managing the amygdala. And sometimes there are classrooms that are, they might have really clear classroom management, but the kids may still not feel safe. So we want to make sure that we're considering that. So that's what this is all about: is managing the amygdala management. Now, ready to learn. We're going to see that a solution here, we can't control all of the things the kids come to us every day, for school, but we can help set up a few things. One would be rituals and routines. The second one would be, giving kids a voice in the classroom that has to do with the student learning communities. We could give them choice in the classroom. I told you that was going to come back up. That would have to do with differentiation. Now, let's take these one at a time. Just routines, rituals and routines. There are basic ones. All of us have morning routines, daily routines, after school routines. But when we're thinking about this, you're going to be thinking about rituals and routines in your classroom. There will be 6 modules that you go through in this course where you're learning about the routines, you're thinking about the routines, you're thinking about the environment, the safety, predictability. What does it mean to be a friendly environment? What's the difference between friendly and welcoming? So those are all in the rubric. All of those things are there in the rubric in the third column on the ready to learn. And we're going to be learning how to be considering them. For right now, what we want you to get out of this module is understanding how important they really are, these rituals and routines. And some of those may be changing. These may change at the beginning of every school year. So it might be, we got to be thinking about the rituals and routines both in class and sometimes at home and sometimes even delivering instruction online. We have to be thinking about the rituals and the routines that help the brain and the amygdala calm down. I mentioned student learning communities. This will be a thread throughout. But part of it is we need to build this idea of safety and welcoming and belonging, and this will be an opportunity to help us build student voice. So these student learning communities are an opportunity to build camaraderie and belonging within the groups of the students. And within now, what happens in a student learning community is students are able to find their voice because they're playing a certain role. They get social support for their learning. They don't feel like they're alone. Like in this class, I hope you're taking this class with a colleague so that you're not alone. I hope that you feel like you have somebody that you're taking this class with. We're trying in developing community and belonging, and developing common language. Kids get to hear their own opinion. If we can develop that safe learning community, they get to hear their own voice, which is really, really important for allowing their amygdala to calm down. We're trying to move the classroom from just compliance, where the kids are doing what they're told, and it's nice when they go along with that, but they don't always want to. We're trying to engage them in their learning and empower them in their learning. And so that's what a student learning community is all about, is it's moving them towards that empowerment and working together, in a community of learners. The third thing, so we've talked about rituals and routines, we've talked about student learning communities. Now the last one's about differentiation. I love this. One size fits all. That cracked me up when I saw that. But when we're in the classroom, we have to understand, one of the things that helps the kids' amygdala calm down is when the instruction is designed around them. They get to have a choice involved. Remember that learned helplessness. If they don't ever have a choice, it just feeds into that learned helplessness and the fight, flight, or freeze. Usually, kind of a freeze mode. Um, but we can actually in class help the kids connect to their race or their culture, their background. I see this all the time in classrooms. It's really, really cool. Special needs, kids' interests, maybe their own goals that they set up, either individual or maybe as a student learning community. But that personal choice, we really focus in on that choice because of the impact that we see when we're out in the classroom. When we give kids personal choice, it empowers them. It helps the amygdala calm down. It starts to allow information to work its way through the hippocampus and into short-term memory. You're going to read all about that in the lit review. And so, take advantage of this class to brainstorm. What are some ways you can give kids choice in class? Maybe it's a topic of study. Maybe it's whether they work with a learning partner or not. Maybe it's where they sit. Um, maybe it's an alternative assessment. It's showing what they know, and maybe they get to decide that. At the elementary level, we've seen kids just light up when the teacher tells them they can either use a pencil or a pen. And all of a sudden these kids who are disengaged were so excited. And maybe they have 10 problems in math to do, but they get to decide where to start. It really is interesting to just see all the different ways we can offer choice. Now, this module is about just understanding the science behind it. We're not trying to develop it yet, just yet. I hope you are considering some of your own practices. But our goal here is to understand the power of and the importance of these things related to rituals and routines, student learning communities, and meeting the individual needs of students along the way. Now, we're ready to learn. It's about amygdala management. The rituals and routines, you're going to read about that in the lit review. Student voice and personal choice. Now, all of these things are sort of like the foundation behind all of it is student learning communities for them to feel safe and belong. Remember the Maslow part of this whole thing is that they don't feel alone. And as you're taking this class, I hope you don't feel alone. We want to connect you with someone. If you'd like to take this class with somebody, like invite somebody to take the class with you and watch the videos together and enjoy the planning together. We want you to have a community while you're learning. And if you don't have anybody in your building, make sure you're reaching out to us. All right, so not just about classroom management, but it is about amygdala management. We're going to be looking at this third column here. Let me see. Let me grab this here real quick. This amygdala management. We're looking at this right here. This third column, get to know these three bullets. You'll see that it's about the environment, rituals, and routines. It's about a supportive student learning community, and it's about differentiation. Those are the three things. That's the science behind all of this. All right, so in that third column, it says teacher establishes a friendly and welcoming environment with rituals and routines. Sound familiar? Set up to facilitate positive student interaction and behavior. You'll learn along the way why some of those words are highlighted in red. That'll be your next module on how to observe and how to read the rubric. Second bullet, students collaborate. They interact with their peers. They provide social support for learning. They're engaged in academic discourse. Maybe we introduce into the student learning community common language, academic discourse, sentence stems that we all use as we talk to each other. Students, the third bullet, students work in a differentiated environment that takes into account their races, cultures, backgrounds, special needs, interest goals, and personal choices. You do not have to do all those things. We just consider those as examples. Your job is to learn these four habits, understand the science behind each one of those, that as we develop the routines, as we provide the learning community, as we try to provide different opportunities and choice, that the amygdala will calm down. That's what this is about. It's about ready to learn by calming the amygdala down so that we can get information through the hippocampus. All right, so you're going to be reading in the rubric, learning more about the rubric there. And again, you can start reading from left to right, but we're really focusing in on that third column. That was a lot. I hope you're able to hang in there if you see that it's just too long, you can stop along the way. But this was an important one for us to really establish uh, in module 2, it's the neuroscience behind all this. It's the importance of the environment, the classroom environment. It's the importance of the learning community, and it's the providing opportunities to differentiate. We're not trying to change our practice right now. We're just trying to understand it. This module is about the research behind it. Thanks for hanging in there on a long PowerPoint. Now you're going to have some opportunities to read some other things. We've got a little lit review that we pulled together for you to help you understand that as well. Hopefully you'll find that really, really valuable in your work. But we're really just trying to establish, why are we focusing on that little square, that third column of ready to learn? Why is that so important? The rest of the modules, all 6 of them, will be about understanding how to uh, reflect on our practices and then align our practices. So, all right, hopefully this was helpful for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And we're looking forward to seeing you online.